I signed my wife's family's prenup when I was broke. After she cheated, they demanded I tear it up so she could take half my fortune. Okay, this is gonna be a long one. Just need to unload it somewhere. Not asking for comfort or advice here. So, when I met Melissa, I was stuck in a basic job, drowning in student loans, and sharing a tiny apartment with roommates. Meanwhile, her family wasn't flying private every week, but they were definitely well off. They owned property, had a successful local business, and lived in a big house in a fancy neighborhood. Our financial worlds were miles apart. We dated for about a year, and things were pretty good. But then we started talking about marriage, and that's when things got complicated. Melissa's parents, especially her dad, were super involved in her life. They weren't mean right away, but they made it clear they were worried about my finances compared to Melissa's and theirs. They never called me broke to my face, but it was pretty obvious. They pointed out that Melissa was used to a certain lifestyle, and they had built their wealth carefully. Marriage meant merging everything, and they wanted to be sure Melissa's financial future would be secure. Their solution? A prenup. It wasn't optional, it was a must if we wanted their blessing and help with the wedding. They even lined up a lawyer for me, though it was clear the lawyer was more on their side. I could get my own lawyer, but with the wedding plans rolling, there was no time or money for that. I was in my mid-20s and had no clue about dealing with legal stuff this big. I couldn't afford a top-notch lawyer to fight their terms. The lawyer they provided was okay, but basically just explained everything without suggesting I fight back. The prenup was straightforward. If we divorced, I wouldn't get any of Melissa's premarital assets, inheritances, or anything tied to her family. I also wouldn't get a share of anything we gained during the marriage, except under some conditions that were hard to qualify for. Basically, what was hers stayed hers, and what I earned was mine. Alimony was either off the table or capped really low, just in case Melissa needed a little help for a short time. I read it and got the point. I didn't have much to protect at that time. Getting rich felt like a faraway dream. The pressure to sign was intense. Wedding plans were in full swing. Melissa accepted it as necessary for her family's peace of mind, and I felt trapped. My choices were to sign and marry Melissa with her family's approval or refuse, which could mean ending the relationship or marrying without their support, which would be a headache from day one. So, I signed it. In the first few years, we were tight on money, just like I expected. I stuck with my entry-level job and started looking for ways to earn more. Melissa worked part-time, then took over managing the household when my job demanded more time. The prenup didn't come up again. It was just a document filed away somewhere. I focused on building something myself. I was frustrated with my slow progress at work, so I started a side tech project. I poured evenings and weekends into it, using whatever spare cash we had. Melissa kept things running at home, and we lived pretty modestly despite her family's wealth. No big handouts from them, just the occasional small gift. My side gig started picking up speed, but it wasn't an instant success. It took years of hustle and learning. Eventually, I quit my job to go all in on it. It was a risk we talked about, no paycheck for a bit. Melissa said she was cool with it, but her folks weren't thrilled about the uncertainty. I kept at it. The business grew slowly at first, then took off. I found a market niche, put together a team. So, around our 5th wedding anniversary, our business really took off and was valued pretty high. It wasn't just about the money coming in, we were making profits, growing, and even catching the eyes of investors. My stake in the company, plus some other smart investments I made with those profits, started to build up to some serious wealth. This was all from my own hard work and what my business had achieved after we got married. Before I knew it, I had more financial clout than Melissa's family, and, yeah, by most standards, I was a millionaire. It showed in how we lived, our lifestyle definitely got a glow up. We were still a bit hush-hush about the exact numbers, though. We moved into a bigger house in a nice area, although it wasn't quite as posh as the neighborhood Melissa's folks lived in. We started traveling more, and Melissa stopped working entirely to manage our increasingly busy home life. This was a notable shift. Her parents, who were initially a bit skeptical about my financial state when we got married, suddenly started taking a keen interest in my business. They went from skeptical to impressed, asking me for investment tips and complimenting my business smarts. Funny how they never brought up the prenup they insisted on before we got married. But amidst all this financial growth, our marriage started to feel the strain. I was still mostly focused on the business, while Melissa was enjoying the perks but seemed a bit disconnected from the person behind it all, me. Our lives were heading in different directions. She had her social activities and was all about managing our upscale lifestyle, while my mind was on business, innovation, and pushing further growth. Our conversations turned into more like business transactions, focusing on household stuff or social events. The warmth and shared dreams kind of vanished. Then, about a decade in, things took a turn. I began to notice changes in Melissa. She was distant, guarded with her phone, and not around during her usual times. When I brought it up, she got defensive or brushed it off. It wasn't a sudden thing, more like a slow suspicion from little things adding up. Eventually, I found out, not through her, but some other roundabout way, that Melissa was seeing someone else. He was a guy she met through her social circles, wealthy with family money, which seemed to matter a lot in how she saw him. This had been going on for a while. Once I knew, things kind of blew up. Her family, who were super interested in my business success, flipped their attitude back to protectiveness, but now with a new worry, Melissa's financial future if we divorced. The guy she was involved with wasn't looking for anything serious, he was married and lived in another state. This got her family anxious about her position if our marriage ended. They didn't beat around the bush. Melissa's dad reached out directly, asking to meet ASAP for the sake of the family's well-being. I agreed to meet him and Melissa's mom at their place, and it wasn't exactly a fun chat. They brought up that they knew about the rocky state of our marriage and Melissa's affair. They said they were concerned about us but quickly got to the point, the prenup. Her dad talked first, admitting he pushed for it years ago and acknowledging things were way different now. He pointed out my success and the wealth I had built up, saying the prenup's reason for existing wasn't valid anymore since it was meant to protect Melissa from marrying someone broke. Now that I wasn't, and had actually become pretty wealthy, he said the prenup was outdated and unfair. His proposal? Get rid of it, either by signing a new agreement or just tearing up the old one, and if Melissa wanted a divorce, go through the usual process. He argued that without the prenup, California law would grant Melissa half of everything we had amassed during the marriage, which he saw as the fair thing to do, considering the years she'd spent as a stay-at-home wife supporting my career. He didn't mention the affair complicating things, it was all about my wealth and the prenup being unfair now. Melissa was there but didn't say much, letting her parents do the talking. When asked, she simply said that So, Melissa and I were in this situation where she thought our prenup was totally outdated and didn't reflect our current life. She didn't seem to feel bad about the affair she had or worried about our marriage falling apart. She was just focused on getting a slice of what I had earned while we were married. Basically, she wanted to leave me, be with her new guy, or at least have the freedom to explore that, and still walk away with a good chunk of my money. I was pretty straightforward in my response. I heard them out, and when they finished, I reminded everyone that the prenup was a solid, legal contract. It was crafted by lawyers and both Melissa and I signed it, fully aware of what we were agreeing to, including how it applied to anything we earned later. The whole thing was actually their idea back then because I didn't have much and they wanted to protect Melissa's pre-marriage assets from any claim I might make. The prenup was designed to handle exactly this kind of situation, where one of us made good money during the marriage. It didn't say the agreement would be void if I got rich. So, I stuck to my guns, saying I wouldn't agree to tear it up or settle for anything outside its terms. If divorce was on the table, we'd go by the prenup. Melissa and her parents were shocked and pretty mad. They thought they could pressure me into giving in, maybe expecting me to avoid conflict or act chivalrously. Then Melissa's dad tried to up the ante with some veiled threats, talking about dragging me through court and causing public embarrassment to get the prenup tossed. But I stood firm. I'd already talked to my own lawyer, specializing in prenups, and I made it clear that's how I defend myself. After that, I got up and left their place. Things got worse from there. Melissa started divorce proceedings, and her lawyer, clearly influenced by her folks, jumped right into challenging the prenup. They claimed it was unfair because my situation had changed financially, and that maybe Melissa was somehow forced into signing it, which didn't make sense since it was their idea. They wanted a big alimony and a good share of my assets, like the prenup was invisible. My legal team was ready. We fired back, saying the prenup was totally legit. We had records from when it was signed showing she had her own lawyer and that her parents were all for it. We pointed out that the prenup was meant to cover future income and assets and that Melissa had agreed voluntarily. We also explained the context of the divorce, including the affair, not to pin blame but to highlight how she was trying to gain financially despite the existing agreement. It took a while, with lots of legal back and forth. Mediation didn't work since Melissa and her team wouldn't recognize the prenup. My lawyers picked apart their arguments, proving she had independent advice, our finances were clearly laid out at the time, and that my financial boom was due to my efforts, not hers. Their claim of the prenup being unconscionable because I got wealthy didn't fly since Melissa was never in danger of being unable to meet her basic needs, thanks to her family's support. Eventually, The court set hearings to decide on the prenup's validity before touching on asset division or alimony. During these hearings, it was clear Melissa's case to get rid of the prenup was weak. Her previous words and her family's own push for the prenup contradicted her claims of being unfairly pressured. My legal team made a strong case to keep the contract intact. Alright, so here's the deal. Things got pretty intense when Melissa and I were about to split. Her team realized they probably weren't going to win in court about the prenup's validity, so they tried a new angle but still didn't want to go along with what the prenup said. My lawyers were like, just stick to your guns, man. And they were right. The prenup was my ace in the hole, and it totally worked out. The judge ruled in my favor, saying the prenup was legit. We both had lawyers when we signed it, all the financial cards were on the table back then, and the deal wasn't crazy for either of us at that time. Plus, just because my assets grew big time didn't mean the prenup was out of line now. So, the prenup held strong and set the stage for the rest of the divorce. Melissa had basically given up her rights to any of the stuff I made or got later, and she wasn't entitled to much alimony. Her lawyers tried for some wiggle room or at least a little support, but the prenup was pretty airtight. In the end, Melissa only got what she came into the marriage with, a few things she bought herself, and a small short-term alimony, way less than she or her family hoped for. She got none of my business, none of my investments, nothing extra from what I earned while we were together. All my hard-earned wealth stayed with me, protected by the prenup her family pushed on me in the first place. This was a big shake-up for Melissa. She had been a stay-at-home wife for years while I was making money, so she hadn't kept a career or built up any major earning power. She was used to living large off my income but couldn't touch it post-divorce because of the prenup. She really didn't have much to her name afterwards. Plus, around the time the divorce wrapped up, things ended with the guy she'd been seeing behind my back. From what I heard, he wasn't looking to get serious with her, so when the divorce didn't score her a big payout, he bounced. She was left without him or the financial cushion she expected from our split. With no big assets and no income, she didn't have many choices. The house we lived in was mine, and her old lifestyle was out of reach. Her family, who got this whole prenup drama started, had their own protected wealth. While they could give her a roof over her head, she pretty much had to start from scratch. Reports got back to me through people we both knew that she moved back to her old room in her parents' big house. No job, no financial independence, and her plans for a new, rich life and relationship both fell through. As for me, I kept everything I built, the business, the assets, I just didn't have the marriage anymore. The years spent with Melissa, all those memories and shared moments, however messy they ended, were over. The whole divorce process was draining, the legal fights, the tension with her family, coming to terms with what she'd done. The marriage ended, and Melissa had to go back to living with her parents, far from the lifestyle she got used to. I was left with the wealth I earned on my own. That's the story. From being broke, signing a prenup, to building a lot of wealth, dealing with a challenge from those who wanted the prenup, and seeing it all play out. It's done now. Just needed to lay it all out here.